Hey, how you doing? It's Jeff. I just wanted to give a quick update on this Grizzly G0765 lathe. So, after using it for about 3 months, and I really like it, it does have a good amount of power for its class. It operates relatively smoothly. I did have one issue that I do want to share with everyone which has been quite a number of people who's watched my initial impressions video on this. The high-low gear on the back switches from the low speed setting from about 0 to 950. That setting, actually, the gear inside the headstock stripped. Taking some pretty normal cuts, cutting steel, taking about a 5/1000 or 10/1000 facing pass, and it stalled and made a horrible noise. And then the headstock, or the chuck wouldn't spin as the motor did. High-speed gear still worked, which is nice. So after taking the entire machine apart, which was actually a very edifying experience, I then learned it was there's a gear that slides between in the transmission that's inside the headstock. This really wouldn't bother me because taking the machine apart wasn't that hard. Being the size that it is, it's not like you need cranes to lift up pieces just to move them out of your way. To a point, it was all basically capable of being done with the tools included with the machine, which is fantastic. However, the axle that the stripped gear rides on is hung between two pressed-in bearings and has a keyway in the middle of it. This means there must be some sort of jig, I don't know, but it's basically not user serviceable. So that's the bad news. The great news is that Grizzly hooked me up. I gave them a call. They do a 1-year warranty on all of their machines. I talked to them on the phone and via email. They were very helpful. Because I'm lucky enough that I live within about 2 hours drive of their Springfield, Missouri location, I just decided to go down there and actually check it out, just see what it was all about. And so I took the machine down there, let them look at it while I looked around their showroom, and they basically said, yeah, it's not something that they were capable of fixing there, and they ended up shipping me a new one. So I was without a lathe I went up there last week, so I was without a lathe for about 6 days. I was without a low-speed gear for about 2 weeks. So all told, how bad it could have been, a lot worse. It's disappointing. I didn't crash the compound into the chuck. I wasn't taking anything too heavy. I'm not sure. A couple of things I really wanted to point out that I thought was really interesting was that this machine, after just unboxing it yesterday and cleaning it up, running it through its spindle break-in procedure, where you run it through various RPMs for a certain amount of time, it's in a number of ways nicer, smoother, tighter, and more rigid than the last machine. The motor itself seems to run quieter. I'm not sure if you can pick that up on the video. It doesn't have as much noise seemingly coming from the headstock. I haven't adjusted the gibs on either the cross slide or the compound, and they are actually smooth and tight, which is really nice. I think they're actually better than how I had them adjusted on the previous lathe, which is really nice. I like that. Haven't had to adjust anything on the tailstock to get it to lock. The previous one I did have to take, there's a small tab underneath the tailstock that you can adjust how tight this lever locks it, and I just had to give it half a turn. It was no issue to do that, but this one I haven't had to do that, for what that's worth. What else? This is something that I was having a serious issue with towards the end of the last lathe's life, I guess. The power feed screw has an engagement lever on the rear right next to the transmission between high and low speed. The lever for up, you pull the lever up and that feeds your tool rest, your carriage, towards the headstock. So you do that for typical threading or just power feed turning, anything such as that. On the last lathe, the detent on the back here, we'll get a close-up shot for you, it was not very far from the neutral detent, and it wasn't very deep either. It was very shallow, and it wasn't very far to move the whole lever, which resulted in a lever that would want to walk itself out, and under any real stress would disengage, which is kind of a nightmare when you're trying to run threads and you need to keep the carriage and the chuck in perfect sync. So this one is a lot more of a positive engagement, and it's much further throw. Again, just a really interesting thing. It's almost as if the one I got, I think maybe the gear, because of maybe numerous maladjustments, I had received it after a long time of them being out of stock on that lathe. They were out of stock for, as far as I know, at least 2 months. I don't know if it was they were rushing to get them to the market. That's just speculation on my part. I don't know. All I know is this replacement one is so far better, and I can get back to the projects that I was initially working on to share with you all until I was so rudely interrupted. So that's the long and short of it. Again, you know, Grizzly was supreme through the entire process. To replace the machine, you know, then they would have, had I not wanted to travel to their location, they would have actually sent me the shipping details, so I could have just mailed it off on their dime to them, and then they could have taken care of it. Had I wanted to do that, I might have had to wait a few more days, but I wouldn't have had to drive halfway down Missouri. That was my choice. Either way, yeah, like I said, they took care of me, and you know, very friendly, helpful people in every step of the process that were really, their primary concern was actually getting me back up and running with a working machine. So that, you know, it speaks a lot, and I think that's really worth mentioning, even though that I'm not gonna pretend that I bought this machine understanding that it's a tool room device. I know that it's small, I know that it's imported, I know certain parts of it are nylon plastic. I understand that. I still chose this. It worked for my needs, and I went with Grizzly because I knew that if this happened, and it did, that they'd take care of me, and they did. So anyway, thank you for watching. I will hope to have some neat lathe projects soon, and hit that subscribe button.